The wind is kept to the water tonight. It came up around midday out on the crossing, and I had the best of it under sail. Since I climbed up here, it has stayed below, and not once come in among the trees. The fire in front of me burns straight. I will sleep warm. The timber holds its own air. I am riding close into the fire, my back against one of the big trunks, the box shut again at my elbow, supper done, the blanket over my knees. It is a long way from Vesper to this fire. I came the whole of it today, and I am glad to be sitting down. I set out at first light. The box out here wants seeing to before winter has the water, and that was the whole of the errand. I went over through the trees while the day was still gray in them, with the moss holding what was left of the night, and I came out onto the far shore to a morning gone bright and hard and cold. The sun stayed low over the water and never meant to do otherwise. There was frost in the shadow of the bearing rocks, and it was still there when I pushed off. The tide said there was no hurry, so I ate at the flat rock first. The wind had not found that beach yet. It was the calmest seat the morning offered. The boat lay bottom up above the rack. I turned her, went along her seams with my thumb, and found her sound. She was down the shingle and afloat inside the hour. The mast stepped, the sail bent on. It is 11 miles by the chart from that shore to this one, most of it open water. There was wind enough from the first, on the quarter and steady. She took it and leaned and settled into her work. I settled into mine, which under sail is mostly the holding of things. I had the sheet in one hand and the tiller under my arm, and the shore went by without any labor of mine to account for it. A boat under oars talks all the way over. There is the knock of it and the drip, the water going past in pieces, stroke by stroke, everything bought and paid for as you go. Under sail she goes quiet. The water comes past in one long word. The boat leans on the wind the way a man leans on a fence, and my share of the work is to hold the course and keep out of the way of what is working. The sun was on my right hand from first to last, low and white, laying a strip of glare along the water to the south that moved as I moved and never gained. I do not get many days under sail in a year. Every one of them has an hour like that in it somewhere, the hands with nothing to do and the eyes with everything. Still timber stood up ahead the whole way, all of a piece, high in the middle, dark with its own trees down to the waterline. Behind me, the far shore let itself down toward the water until it was only a line. I turned once, near the middle of the crossing, and there was the whole of Lantern Shoals laid out behind me, the arms and the high wood and the far beach all in their places, small enough to cover with a spread hand. A man spends his years on a coast a few fathoms at a time. Then, some afternoon, the water hands him the entire thing at once. I checked it against the chart in my head, found nothing to move, and came back to my course. This was the year's last crossing out. Tomorrow, I sail her back, and she goes bottom up until spring. The water out this way keeps a civil surface into the first of the winter and not much past it, and I have no business with the other kind. The daylight is done stretching to fit as well. I left at first light and finished hauling out with the light going, the two ends of the day near enough to touching. In the easy season, this trip is half the day's sun. Now, it takes every hour the sky has. The island took the wind off me in the last stretch of the sail, the way high ground to windward will. The sail went slack and would not fill again, so I brought it down and rowed her in through the lee. The water smoothed as the shore stood up. The wind stayed where I had left it, out on the open water, and none of it followed me in. I put in at the tongue of shingle on the near shore and ran her in soft. I hauled her out and made her fast. The landing was as I left it in the spring. The way up from the landing is short and steep and soon done. The sea keeps a small voice at that landing, and it followed me the first few steps. Then the moss took over from the stones, and the trees closed overhead, and the water dropped away behind me the way talk drops away when a door is shut on it. After that, the island was all there was. The trees here stand well apart, with moss and bare ground between them, and nothing growing across the spaces, so a man can walk any line he likes under them. The air stood still, and what it carried was old wood and cold bark. Nothing moved that I did not move myself. I stood a moment under the first of the big trunks and let the quiet finish arriving. Then I went on up. The pocket sits under the big timber, closed at the back and both sides, and open toward the water. The moss in it lies deep enough to make a bed of. The box kept its lid tight and its stone on top. The wood inside was dry through, and the blanket smelled of the box and wanted airing, so it hung over the open lid while I saw to the fire and the supper. I put in what I brought over and shut the lid on the rest of it for the winter, and with that, the year's errand was done. Firewood is the one thing this island does not offer. The shore leaves a little driftwood at the south end when the water is minded, and in all my years of coming here, I have never once picked up anything under the trees worth burning. I stopped looking a long time ago. What burns for me tonight came out of the box, put by dry on an earlier trip. It took the match without argument, and it has burned the way dry wood burns. The blanket came off the lid smelling of cold instead of the box. Supper was bread and the last of the smoked fish. Since then, it has been the ledger and the blanket and one more piece of wood, which the box could spare. At vesper, the dark behind the house is always busy with something, weather or wings or the woods handing a sound along. Here, the trees have had nothing to pass on all evening. What reaches this fire is the water below, and not much of that. I've been listening while I write, the way a man listens anywhere he keeps still long enough. The water keeps at the stones, small at this distance, and the fire puts in its word now and then, and the fire is the louder of the two. The light I am writing by is the fire's, and it is enough, though it keeps its own weather on the page, brightening and settling as the wood works. The cold thickens the ink a little, and the pen wants a patient hand. When I stop between sentences, my breath shows, going out past the light. From here, I can see down between the trunks to the landing, or to where the landing is. The boat is a darker shape on the dark stones. The water past her shows only where it moves, a gray working line along the shingle, and past that, the dark and the sound run together. The wind has not left the crossing, though it has been working its way around to the east while I have sat here. What comes up to me of it is the news and none of the weight, long pushes with small rests between. The far shore showed as a low line while the west had any light, and now it does not show at all. Home is behind it, with the cove and the cabin and the cold stove. The tide will stand right for leaving by the middle of the morning. The wind, whatever is left of it by then, will be behind me going home, and the sail will go up wet and dry itself on the way. The blanket has warmed through. Whatever the morning tide asks, it will not ask it early.